they're a bunch of far left, fringe, radical nutcases who want death to all white people. They don't want to end racism. They want to perpetuate it. Right? I mean, that's exactly what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is. And that's why TikTok deplatformed me, because they didn't like the fact that I told the truth. They didn't like the fact that I exposed the truth and that I perpetuated Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. and the Lord Jesus Christ and their perpetuated idea of ending racial wars and all form of gang wars by stopping pendulums from swinging, by getting rid of radicalized people on every side of the notion. And they don't like the fact that ID did not support white supremacy and thought that taking the swastika off of the list of emblems for the Coast Guard was a bad idea. And the fact that I thought that people saying they're Team Hitler and that the Holocaust didn't happen was an atrocity. They didn't like that, because then that would make it look like that there's a point to be made here, and that you have to get rid of the radicalized notions of Black Lives Matter and Malcolm X and Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and that various group of black liberals and all of that nutcasery, right? They don't want that truth to be perpetuated, because then it means that they can't hate those white people anymore. They just can't hate those stupid white people. I just can no longer accuse Sydney Sweeney of being a white supremacist because she was born with good genes and has blue eyes, beautiful blue eyes and blonde hair, and she's not 700 pounds overweight, and she decided to be famous and make money and do a Jean ad, Jeans, without our permission for the American Eagle brand. And now I can't deplatform her for me being jealous of the fact that she has good genes. And that's what it really is, right? I mean, that's really what it is. TikTok didn't like that because they're owned by China, and the Chinese don't like that because the president of China, the communist president of China, constantly talks about how the Chinese people are superior to all of the races and everybody should just get in line and do whatever they say. He uses the word Chinese supremacy. And so they didn't like that because they're like, well, you know, the only way that the Chinese will take over the world is if we don't let them start getting rid of all fringe groups regardless of race. We get rid of both the David Dukes of the world and the Malcolm X's of the world. That's what they don't like, you know, because they're all racist. Because they hate everybody that's not Chinese. Not the Chinese people, obviously, but the president of China and the communists of China, yeah. And that's what it is. That's why they did it, you know? And then, you know, because I put that up there and they're, oh, no, wait a minute. And then, you know, I'm sure if you actually look into the ban, I mean, I am absolutely freaking positive, beyond any reasonable doubt, that if you look into that ban, they're going to say something like hate speech, white supremacy. He was perpetuating white supremacy. I bet you any amount of money on your entire family that the reason that they will give that I was deplatformed is because of perpetuating white supremacy. Well, I literally said in the video, get rid of white supremacy. if the term get rid of white supremacy perpetuates white supremacy, what in hell is going on? What the hell is going on? Then Black Lives Matter perpetuates white supremacy, right? I mean, that would be the logical solution, but they're black. Oh, I don't know. Let's go ask Candace Owens. Okay, so they're black, so they can't perpetuate white supremacy. Let's go ask Candace. It's not like you guys took her before Congress and asked her if she hated black people or anything. Yeah, let's go ask Candace what it's like to be a black white supremacist. And then maybe we can understand that BLM perpetuates white supremacy because they say that they're against white supremacy. And then we can make it make sense that we got rid of Josh because he perpetuates white supremacy by saying to get rid of white supremacy. Yeah, it all makes complete, perfect sense. You're a bunch of lunatics. You've lost your mind. Okay? And now most people today, most people now are a little bit more rational and they're a little bit less deceived and the curtain has come down a little bit. the blinders have come off a little bit and they're like, well, you know what? We should not listen to BLM because they really just hate white people and they're a bunch of crazy French group racists. And the only reason why they haven't been deplatformed isn't because anyone actually believes the nonsense that comes out of their mouth. It's because we're trying to create racial wars between people so that we can divide and conquer, essentially is what it is. Right. And most people become more aware and awake to that fact. So they don't think that it's crazy for me to say, you know that BLM is the result. I mean, you know that they are what initiated, they're what caused white supremacy or this reemergence of Adolf Hitler, pro-Hitler, pro-woke Reich rhetoric to emerge, right? You realize that that is not a result of Donald Trump. And that is 100% a result of Black Lives Matter, right? You realize that. You realize that if you had brought justice to Black Lives Matter and you had denounced it as a crazy far left radical group, if you had said, no, we cannot hate white people because they're white and it's not okay to perpetuate anti-white racism and to make up lies and stereotypes and nonsense about white people and straight white couples and straight white men and everything else under the sun. It is not okay to do that, and we have to put people in prison when they kill random white store owners who happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, if that had happened, there would be no Nick Fuentes. You understand that? You wouldn't have to worry about a Nick Fuentes. You wouldn't be worried about the Coast Guard taking the swastika off of its hate emblems. You wouldn't be worried about a woke Reich that's full of pro-Adolf Hitler rhetoric. You would not have to think about it because they wouldn't have been so emotionally radicalized to come up with such an idea as a direct result of feeling as if they were under fire for the color of their skin. You realize that, right? Like, that's the truth. That's the truth. People might not like the fact that you said it, but that's the truth. They might hate the fact that you said it, but it's the truth. It's the only thing that will get you to the truth. It is the only way possible to end the insanity, radical division of racial division for good. That's how you get rid of it. Do you realize that? Because you can do a Band-Aid fix, which they're attempting to do. My goodness, Lord Jesus Christ. Okay, you could have Band-Aid fixes where you try to sweep it under the rug and act like it's all good and everything's great. You know, you could do that. And what it does is it causes the reemergence of pro-Hitler rhetoric, as you've already seen. And if you continue to do that, who knows where that ball is going to go, right? Or you could quit trying to band-aid fix the problem and actually deep surgery fix the problem. And that would have to be that you get rid of all fringe groups. You have to get rid of BLM and the far left Black Lives Matter, Black Panther Party, anti-white racist rhetoric, and simultaneously keep like the David Dukes and the KKKs of the world in the measure and the metric of radicalized fringe groups, and do the same with every other radicalized fringe group, and then remove the stereotypes of all perpetuated groups by all perpetuated groups. That's how you get there. That's how you get to that point. And unless you're like, you're like the Joker, unless you're an anarchist who wants to see the world burn, not because you believe in fairness and justice and all of this bull that you hide behind to try to manipulate people to take your side and help you burn it to the ground, but because you just want to see the world burn because you're bitter and angry inside, like the Joker was, right? Do I really look like a guy with a plan? I'm just a dog chasing cars. I don't know what I would ever do if I actually ever caught one. That's the Joker, right? Just bitter. Some men, Master Bruce, some men can't be reasoned with, bought off, or dealt with. Some men just want to watch the world burn. That's true. BLM wants to watch the world burn. The KKK wants to watch the world burn. Those are the people that want to watch the world burn. Those people cannot be reasoned with or bought off or anything else. They have to be banished to the shadow realm. That's the only way that you deal with those people. You gotta lock them up in Arkham Asylum. That's how you get rid of them, broski. You gotta be Batman. You know, it's hard for you to understand, I know, because you're a coward, but you know what? You gotta be Batman. It's just the way it works. And you gotta be Batman, and you cannot allow, it's kind of like you can't allow these anarchists to run everything. You just cannot do it, because the thing about chaos is it's fair. Yeah, you can't let that Joker get into the minds of your Harvey Dents. Otherwise, you get what you got right now. That's exactly what it is, right? So you have your jokers, right? You have your anarchists, Black Lives Matter, far left, woke, Antifa, and they're currently trying to get into the mind of Harvey Dent, the White Knight, and turn him into the woke right, so that they just want to watch the world burn too, and they become two-faced, right? That's exactly what it is. And I think that that's insanity. I am the Dark Knight, dressed in all black. Like the Dark Knight, I might be off-white. I'm trying to perpetuate the opposite of that. And I'm not a coward. So I don't hide behind saying racist things about white people so people don't think that I'm racist against non-whites. And I don't hide behind never calling out the Black Lives Matter network so that they don't become radicalized and try to take away my race card as a black person. I don't hide behind whatever other nonsense, that non-radicalized black, white, Hispanic, and whatever other group of people there is hide behind because they just don't want to get involved. Okay. I tell the truth because I'm Batman, because I'm courageous. And I don't want a world with anarchists and Harvey Dents running around shooting people and deciding that a coin is whether or not how they're going to die or not. And maybe we should just go ahead and blow up both boats because they can't pick for themselves. Yeah, I don't want a world like that. Okay. And unlike a lot of these cowardly people who all agree with me, by the way, I would say probably maybe even 90% of the entire population does. But they're just too scared to say it. And it's not because they disagree, it's because they see people like the KKK and BLM murdering people that disagree with them. But unlike them, I realize that the way that you fight a fire is that you have to fight a fire, right? You don't sit there and sit back and say, well, just let the fire burn a few more shrubs. Maybe it'll get its system. Maybe it'll get it out of its system. Maybe we won't have to fight it. If we just give it that 1 acre of land, maybe it won't burn down the whole forest. Like, just let it go and sweep it under the rug because we don't really want to get on fire. We don't want to deal with it. And then, hopefully it won't burn down our village a couple miles away and all of our children and the next generation will be safe and everyone will be a happy-go-lucky day and we'll all be wearing rose-colored glasses and looking at the rainbows together because everything's perfect and that's the way the world works. Yay! But because I believe that if you want to end a fire, you have to actually go fight it. You actually have to go fight it. You have to quit being a coward. And you have to put on your firefighter outfit like a big boy, and you gotta go put on your suit, and you have to go risk the possibility of you being burned to stop the fire from burning down the whole world. Duh. Or like me, Batman, you got to go out there and fight crime, bro. And that's what it is. That's the only way the village doesn't burn down. If you do anything besides that, the village does burn down. The only opportunity for the village not burning down, the only opportunity for your children not to grow up in a world where they're judged by their race, regardless of what race that is, the only way that doesn't happen is if you stand up and say, no, it's not okay to be racist against people because of the color of their skin. That is not okay. Okay, and not self-righteously, hypocritically, it's not okay to be racist against minorities, but it's okay to be racist against whites. No, see, that's the exact opposite of justice and courageousness and a spine and ending racism. Okay, no, you have to say it is not okay to be racist against people because of the color of their skin. It is not okay to completely decide and dictate where somebody's future and opportunities are allowed to go and where they're not allowed to go and what they're allowed to do and what they're allowed to say and not allowed to do and not allowed to say, solely perpetuated by the fact that they were born a certain race. That is not okay. That is insanity. And it's a slippery slope that will eventually kill us all. Like, you realize that, right? That has to be ended. Okay. And the only way that it gets ended is when you say, this has to be ended, right? We can't sit here and pretend that it's a little bit different because people don't like the fact we say it, right? Like, it has to actually be ended. You understand that, right? That's the only way that you end it. And I'm the one that's lost my mind. Yeah. And Bill Maher, who's an old school liberal, he lost his. And every single Democrat and Republican that has ever lived in the history of this entire country up until 5 years ago completely lost their minds too. And you know what? Maybe we should just go back and say everyone involved in the entire civil rights movement, no matter who they were, was secretly perpetuating white supremacy. That's what it is. Yeah, that's the rational thought. That's the one that makes sense. Yeah. Malcolm X was right about MLK Jr. MLK Jr. was secretly perpetuating white supremacy because he refused to be racist against white people. Yeah, that's the alternative. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Makes a lot of sense to me. Or well, Josh, that just sounds crazy. Oh, okay, we'll go tell Malcolm X because he's the one that said it. I'm just quoting what he said. Josh, that sounds insane, doesn't it? That sounds like a crazy, far left, radical, woke ideology that is based in racism, hatred, bitterness, and anger, and would only ever perpetuate a world full of racism. Crazy. Yeah, I agree. That's why you got to ban BLM and Black Lives Matter and the Jesse Jacksons and Al Sharptons of the world and attribute them to what they are, which is the David Dukes and KKKs, the white supremacists of the world. I mean, it's so blatantly obvious, man. I don't even see how people can miss it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just different, bro. You know, really, it's kind of like Lil Wayne, right? It's just like Lil Wayne. When you look in the Lil Wayne interview, when Lil Wayne's being interviewed, and he tells the story about how when he was 12 years old, that his life was saved by a white man. Right? It's that exact same thing. You know, and I love Wayne, obviously. Always have. Ever since I was a little kid, like I listened to Wayne around the clock. Wayne's music around the clock. Probably have every single word of the Carter 4 memorized. And I grew up listening to Wayne and hip hop in general, really. But, you know, and Wayne was my favorite rapper. Always has been. And as a result of that, you know, it didn't actually really surprise me because I had no idea. I mean, well, I knew that, you know, if you're a real fan, then you knew the story about how he shot himself in the chest with a revolver and all of that. But I had no idea that, you know, it was a white cop that came in there and saved his life until after I heard that story. But, you know, if you're really a fan of Wayne, you know, it's not really a surprise. When I heard that story and I saw how racist that Lil Wayne wasn't, I was like, you know, that really doesn't surprise me, actually, because I see the world the same way. It makes sense to me. That completely makes sense to me. I don't know, bro. It makes sense to me. I never saw it like that, but whatever. And when I saw the story and then, you know, they tried to blow it off. So, anyways, yeah. So, do you believe in Black Lives Matter? And Lil Wayne's like, did you even hear what I just said? Yeah, exactly that. It doesn't surprise me that, because if you listen to Wayne's lyrics, it makes perfect sense. Because when you listen to his uh, mo- uh, most of y'all haters, but I put up a wall and they just wallpaper. So love or hate me, I stay hate free. They say we learn from mistakes, but that's why they mistake me. When you listen to those lyrics, that's the lyrics of someone that thinks that way, right? Or I speak the truth, but I guess that's just a foreign language to y'all, right? Exactly. Those kind of lyrics. And you hear stuff like that quite often in Wayne's lyrics. It doesn't surprise you that he would see the world that way, right? It never surprised me when I heard that. I was like, yeah, that's kind of how I feel, which is the reason why when I listen to the music, I feel those specific lyrics and those parts so heavily and deeply, because that's exactly how I see it. I call it like I see it. And my glasses on, but most of y'all don't get the picture unless the flash is on. Satisfied with nothing, you don't know the half of it. Young money, cash money. It's exactly that. So when Lil Wayne says that he is colorblind, right? Or in that one song, I think it's a, I think he features with who is it? There's a bunch of people on there. It's a remix. I think it was with Jack Harlow, right? The remix. I think it was the remix for What's Poppin'. And he was on there and he said, but I like my women blind like me. I was like, yeah, exactly that, bro. Because what he's saying is that he likes his women colorblind like me. Yeah, I totally feel that, bro, because that's exactly what it is. And Wayne got a lot of pushback on that. And he tells the story about how he accidentally shot himself, or maybe shot himself on purpose if you listen to the Carter Five, and how this cop jumps over, all these cops jump over him and they're all black, and that the only cop that stopped and saw if he was okay was a white cop, and that the white cop picked him up and took him to the ambulance, or didn't take him to the ambulance but picked him up and took him to the hospital, and said and sat right there and waited to see if he was going to be okay before he let him go. And then he said, I don't, there's no such thing as racism. I don't see race because I was saved by a white man. So race doesn't mean anything to me. And when you look at the crowd, there's nothing, there's all people are there. To me, that was an institute that racism didn't exist no more. Right? Yeah, exactly that. It's the exact same thing. That's exactly how I feel. That's exactly what it is. Most of the people that I grew up around, my whole life, a lot of them weren't white. Like, and, they never had a problem with me. I never had a problem with them. I never thought to myself, I guess, whatever, I guess, I never thought to myself, this person is like this and this person is like that. That was never a thought in my head. It never perpetuated in my mind. And a lot of times in life, it's non-white people who helped me a lot when I needed it. And so it's the same kind of thing. So it's the exact same kind of thing. People are people, or like Kevin Gates said, well, there's only two kinds of people in this world, and that's real and fake. And that's exactly right. There's only two types of people in this world, and that's real and fake. And of course, Wayne gets blowback on that interview because he's not a racist and he doesn't hate white people. So they're mad about that. And they want Wayne to have to hate white people so that they could perpetuate a narrative of anti white racism. And they get mad at Kevin Gates because of the same exact thing. And they get mad at so many people because of the same exact thing. And that's the reason why they hated Candace Owens, because of the same exact thing. Because how dare there be anybody that's not white that doesn't hate white people? How could that be a thing? Just like the perpetuated narrative that there's no such thing as a white person that doesn't secretly hate and is racist and wants to kill everybody that's not white. You know what I mean? Just the exact same nonsensical nonsense. And that, how, for you to condemn that, there's something that has to be wrong with you. Nobody hears that interview and thinks to themselves, I think that we should condemn the fact that he perpetuates color blindness and that we should get rid of him, right? Nobody does that. Nobody listens, or the critics of Bill Maher, where Bill Maher says, I'm an old school liberal. I believe in a colorblind society. That's still what I believe. I'm not the one that changed. They're the one that changed. You're the one that went crazy and off your mind and off your rocker, not me. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. That's what it is for me, right? Just like Elon Musk, when he shared that picture where he said that, he was standing here and that put him on the left wing, and then they started running this direction, and then the line got stretched out, and now he's still on the left wing in 2012, but he's a little bit closer to the center, and then they go and take off that whole direction today, and now everyone that doesn't agree with him is a bigot, and now I haven't moved, but now I'm in the center of the right wing. Yeah. It's that exact same thing, just that exact same thing. When I saw that, I was like, yes, finally, somebody is saying exactly what I think. This is nuts. And then Bill Maher goes on there and he said that he relates to that. I'm like, yeah, exactly. See, except the thing is, what you don't understand, Bill Maher, is that you don't understand that the Democrat Party is irredeemable. That's the only problem. You still think that there's a possibility that they're coming back. I jumped ship in 2016 because I saw where it was going, perpetually and mostly because of communism. And I found I was actually kind of like a socialist, really. I really was. Crazy story. Hard to believe now. You look at me now, you say, this guy was actually kind of like a socialist at one time. It's really hard to believe. But I was a perpetuated socialist at one time. That was the mentality and the influence that I was under. I used to get into debates with people advocating for like a democratic worldview and not totally for socialism. Like I never identified as a socialist. Like I never outspokenly used the word socialism, but my viewpoint was in that economical direction. When I would hear and when I learned what socialism was, I thought to myself, like, why is there so much stigma around this word? Like that doesn't even seem like a bad thing. Like that seems like somebody that just wants people to have money. They just want to be fair. Like, what's wrong with that? That was where my line of view was for a long time, for years. I was raised that way. Everybody in my entire family's that way. And that comes out of a place of empathy. And it comes out of a place of actual empathy, actual sympathy, and thinking that the hardcore GOP is full of crap, because they are. And all this pick yourself up by your bootstraps nonsense, which is a bunch of BS, and everybody knows it too. At the end of the day, everybody realizes that. They're just not supposed to say it, because then that shows a sign of, because they think that empathy and sympathy is a weakness, and then they're going to get left behind and they're going to get cut out of the pack and they're all going to get eaten alive too. That's exactly what they think. And the only reason why they do that, because they don't want to be the gazelle that separates from the pack and gets eaten by the lions, because the rest of the gazelles think, oh, you don't believe in working your way and blah, 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 blah. So now we're going to kill you and eat you alive, man. And so that's where my my previous like economical ideas came from. What changed my mind was I had a good group of teachers who were not cowardly and did not submit to the liberal worldview when Barack Obama was president, and had 8 years of liberalism, and they did not submit to the idea that they weren't allowed to talk about economical ideas or political ideas in their classroom. And they courageously told me and us what socialism was, who Karl Marx was, what communism was, and why it was so evil, and why it was communism light, and it's really just a bridge between the two. They told me about the Berlin Wall and the USSR and and Fidel Castro, and how every single time that communism promises freedom and change and economical support and all of this, that it always delivers communist China smothering babies. It always delivers Kim Jong-un with no electricity at night like South Korea has. It always delivers Cubans eating trash out of the streets in Cuba. It always delivers slavery. It always delivers slavery. And when I saw that, it was working on me for a while. Really, I say it was God. I really do think and firmly believe that it was God that was slowly morphing and changing my mindset, and was like they say, I'm the clay and he's the potter, and he's molding me as you go, And I firmly believe that he was molding my mind and mentality to change my worldview on that subject to capitalism, because I didn't know any better. And it wasn't because of my heart issue, right? If somebody had come up to me and tried to convince me otherwise, I wouldn't listen. I was so rooted in it, and I fought people like crazy over it. And God knew, because God looks at the heart. God says, well, he's not a socialist because he wants to be a tyrant. He's a socialist because of his empathy. So what he has to really just understand is that this is not an empathetic system, and it's really a Trojan horse and a wolf in sheep's clothing, and it's come to actually eat the poor. And if he understands that, then he'll be a capitalist by nature. And that's what God did. He slowly, over a period of not sure how long it was, maybe like 4 or 5 years, morphed my mind more and more into a capitalist worldview, more and more into the truth, essentially, is what it is, which just leads to capitalism. And as a result of that, I became blatantly aware of communism and socialism. And then I became blatantly aware of how socialistic and communistic Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party was. And that was around 2015, probably. It was right before Donald Trump ran for president, which is interestingly enough, because that's how I know it was God. It was like God was morphing me right at the same time that there was this rise up against communism as a whole. And then, I'm literally talking to everybody I know, screaming at them, telling them, these people are a bunch of communists. You have no idea. You don't understand. These people are communists. Like, they're not here to save you. They want to kill everybody. They're a bunch of communists. And, and people are like, well, and I was studying the American Revolution and everything all happened at the same time. At that time, you think, well, it's just a coincidence that we line up. But now looking back at it and where the world has gone, you're like, there's nothing coincidental about this at all whatsoever. Born on the earth at a time, for a time such as this, is all Jehovah, right? It's all God. And you look at it, and I was like, you know what? I was telling everybody this and nobody was saying it. And then Donald Trump came out of nowhere and said, these communist socialists, nobody wants to say it. And I was like, that's exactly right. He's 100% correct. It's these communist socialists, nobody wants to say it. We have to stop this. And he was the only one that had the spine to say it. The only one, which, is crazy for Republican candidates. They should all be ashamed of themselves for being too cowardly to say that out of their mouths. They would rather watch America burn so that they could win their stupid little Oval Office. Nonsense. And as a result of that, so then I was like, okay, I'm pro Trump. And then I was MAGA on board, MAGA Trump, go MAGA Trump. And then that was before, if you can remember back then, there was no such thing as white supremacy and wokeism and Black Lives Matter and all of that BS. That was not a thing back then. And then Donald Trump gets elected, and then all of a sudden, overnight, he's a white supremacist and a secret member of the KKK, and he's dog whistling with the number 3 every time he does this because apparently that's a white supremacy symbol. And, you know, I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I don't believe it, but okay, right? You know, like crazy. And as a result of that, then it turns into a race thing, and now apparently everyone that is for Trump is a racist, and everyone that hates him is because they are trying to stop racism. And it just keeps going that direction and turns into sexism and misogyny and this and that. And basically what the Democrat Party wants you to believe to cover up for their crimes against humanity and their communistic agenda to take over the entire country and turn it into a tyrannical new world order perpetuated by the globalistic elites and communist China, to go ahead and put a big giant mask in front of all that so that nobody catches on. They had to use the smokescreen of, well, basically it's just bigotry against non-bigotry. That's what's really going on here. And then when that didn't work, they felt like they had to super radicalize everything by saying, you know what? Forget about it. It's not even about creating a colorblind society anymore. It's about killing those terrible white people so that all the minorities will vote Democrat. That's what it is. And then that's when they lost everybody with a brain in their head. And that's when people like Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. and Joe Rogan said, you know what? No, wait a minute. No, that doesn't make any sense. And then they jump over to MAGA. And then you have people like Bill Maher saying that is still a Democrat saying, no, wait a minute. Like, no, that's crazy. And I'm like, see, guys, see, you guys were all sitting here saying that I had lost my mind because I was a Democrat and I jumped to Trump and everybody was calling me, you know, everybody's like, oh no, you know, everybody that knew me. Oh my goodness, Josh has just lost it. What would make him go with Donald Trump? And then, you know, even people that I knew for years, like literally people that were in my life since I was a child, were saying that I was a white supremacist, that I was a Nazi, that I was a secret racist. Like, and I lost all respect for those people because the fact that you could lie like that straight to my face, right? The fact that you could, under all human decency and knowing me for literally over a decade, right? The fact that you could see me evolve as a child and you could literally comfortably not sear your conscience, comfortably state to the world that I was a white supremacist, a secret white supremacist and a racist the entire time, even though you never seem to think that over the last who knows how long it's been, right? The fact that you could comfortably do that said, wow, this person is a snake. This person is a perpetuated snake, and really, truthfully, quite literally, they have no spine whatsoever under the sun. And I had to cut those people off, you know, and it was crazy to watch. It was really crazy. You almost shocked. You just cannot believe the fact that, you know, like really, like you would, like, you know, it's like you're almost disappointed in them. It's almost like a father looking down on someone, like how you have fallen. Like you would actually be low enough to take that kind of a way out. Okay. And I lost all respect for them. It means that everything I've ever thought about you over the last 15 years is a lie because you're like a spineless sleazeball jellyfish. You're like a literal slug. And then, and that wasn't everybody, right? I'm not saying that about every single person that I knew, obviously, right? Most people didn't do that, but there were some that did. And then there were others that they didn't think I was a white supremacist or anything, never thought I was or said I was, but they thought that I was like a little misunderstood, that I did not understand. And why was I supporting Donald Trump? I must not really understand what's going on and all this kind of stuff. And that's because, unfortunately, because of, like pop culture and history and, whatever you want to call it, education and information, I was more educated on the subject than all of them. And I was able to see a horse and know that it was a horse because I know what a communist is, and that's a communist, right? And I also have the irredeemable traits of not being a coward and saying what I actually think and not being too afraid to say it, and loving people so much that I'm willing for them to say whatever they want to say about me, for me to get it into their head that you're dealing with a bunch of communists and you are all going to die if you don't listen to what I say. And, and so that continued to go. And then you have the rise of Charlie Kirk at the exact same time that this was all happening, and the rise of Candace Owens. You have the rise of Charlie Kirk first, because honestly, I was actually thinking to myself, somebody should create something for like high schools or colleges where they perpetuate capitalistic ideas and expose this communist movement. I was really actually thinking that, crazy enough. And while I'm thinking that, I start seeing like Turning Point USA stuff all over social media. And I get introduced to Charlie Kirk and I'm like, this is awesome. Like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, finally, somebody's doing it. And then I hear the story about how he's like, he's like around the same age as I am. He's a little bit older than me, but I'm like, and that's great. That's amazing. Thank God somebody's doing it. Like, that's exactly what I was thinking. And I started to try, and I started shoving, Turning Point USA stuff down everybody's throat because I'm like, bro, you got to listen to this guy. He's right. This is what it is. And the saddest part about that is like, why the fact that an 18-year-old had to do that because nobody in the previous generations did it and did not stop their children from becoming a bunch of communists is beyond me. But whatever, that's what he was meant to do. It's what he was put on this earth for, and that's why he was put at the time he was. And then from that, when it turned into a supposed race issue, when that was the cop out of the Democratic Party so they couldn't lose control for their communistic ways, you saw the rise of Candace Owens on Illegal is the New Black. And I supported Candace Owens all the way from the jump. And that goes on, and then it gets crazier and crazier and crazier to where they're calling not just white people white supremacists, but they're calling all the black people that voted for Trump a bunch of white supremacists as well. And then that continues for a while. And then it gets to the point where the Democrat Party switches up their approach because they realize the whole white supremacist narrative isn't working anymore. And trying to create a colorblind society isn't working because people don't believe them. It feels disingenuous. So the approach turns into, well, screw the colorblind society. Let's just kill all white people. Yeah. Maybe the colorblind society is not even a good thing. Maybe that's not even the mark that we're trying to hit. Maybe that's not what we need. Maybe we've had this philosophy wrong the entire time. And what we actually need is a radicalized notion of like, pro far left color revolution, anti-white racism propaganda to go ahead and mellow this thing out. Yeah. And that's when they lost anybody who had a brain cell. And then you saw all of these people like RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Rogan and Elon and even Bill Maher saying, no, wait a minute, that's crazy. And That's when they opened the borders and started bringing all the non-white people they could possibly find, the entire world, not just Latin America, but the Middle East and the Asians and everyone else. But you darn well better know, there was no European countries in those illegal immigrants, because they got to get rid of all the white people, because now the narrative is that you have to get rid of the racist whites. And if you invite more whites into the country, then that defeats the purpose, because the whites don't think they're racist. So you have to get people that are not white, because they're the only people that you have a chance maybe at radicalizing them to hate white people. And then that's where we are now, right? And then Donald Trump wants to deport all them because that's the plan, and it's insane. And, well, that's where we are today, right? And now we're in a position of my prediction coming true, where I said, if you don't get rid of that anti-white racism nonsense, if you don't condemn Black Lives Matter and Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and all the black liberals, you know, not just the white liberals, who are all a bunch of crazy lunatics as well, but also the black liberals, if you don't get rid of all the crazy liberals, you're going to perpetuate an actual rise in real far-right white supremacy. And the reason why is because if you listen to one radicalized group and you do not condemn that action, it always results in a equally radicalized group from the opposite direction. You see it time in and time again. It always happens. All you have to do is pick up a history book and read for a few chapters, and you'll figure it out. If you go to Europe during the 1940s, we see both Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler present, almost as if that if there is a far left, there is a far right, and it always happens. So my prediction came true, except I thought that it might not come true for a while down the line, but it came true nonetheless. Now you see Nick Fuentes, and you see the pro-Hitler rhetoric and the anti-Semitic rhetoric and the Coast Guard taking the swastika off the symbols and emblems, and it's becoming mainstream. That's what I'm trying to help you understand. That's what I'm trying to warn people about. It's becoming mainstream. People don't want to hear that. They don't want to listen to it. You know, I try to tell people, they're like, well, you know, it'll just go away. Okay, well, you know what? I think that you're under an illusion, because it's just like the far left. You're doing the exact same thing you did with the wokes, with BLM, now you're doing it with the woke Reich. If you don't address it, it doesn't just go away. It just grows. It's a fire. It'll just burn everything to the ground. That's how it works. You got to get rid of BLM. You got to condemn the far left. You got to get rid of the anti-white racism, and you got to get rid of the anti-white narrative, which, by the way, in turn, equal and opposite reaction, automatically cuts the legs out from underneath the woke Reich, because now they don't have anything to perpetuate a fight against. That's how you do it. That's how you get rid of both radicalized notions and gets you back on the track of, oh, wait, we're actually trying to create a colorblind society, right? Like, we're not trying to perpetuate injustice in one direction over injustice in another, right? Like, we're trying to make things fair. Like, that's where America's greatness is, right? That's what makes America great. That's how you make America great again, right? When America is good, she's great, right? Like the old saying of the day, when America ceases to be good, she ceases to be great, right? And you're trying to cease America from being good, and that's why you got this mess on your hands, this big giant wildfire. And that's what it is. So I was deplatformed from TikTok for basically saying that right there. That's what I said. And, you know, and I was deplatformed, which, you know, I mean, I guess it's not really surprising, because, you know, the social media giants, they're all a bunch of corrupt buffoons. So it's not too surprising. But, you know, I guess when you see Elon Musk buy Twitter, thank God, and Donald Trump creates Truth Social, and you see the rise of Rumble, and you see many social media outlets get fragmented, which is a good thing, thank God. And when you see Donald Trump win a settlement lawsuit against YouTube for deplatforming him, and then going back and replatforming people they had deplatformed in the past. So now I could pretty much say what I want to on YouTube, and I really don't get that many problems with it. I get no problems with Twitter, except for some things that they consider quote unquote transphobia. I'm still having a little issues there. But I'm talking to them about it because I really don't think that, whatever. But for the most part, 99%, I say whatever I want to on Twitter without a problem. YouTube without a problem. Rumble, obviously, without a problem. And then when you see Mark Zuckerberg meet Donald Trump and try to get back in his good graces so he doesn't go to prison for the rest of his life, and you see a noticeable change in Facebook where, I can pretty much say what I want to on Instagram and Facebook, and I really don't get met with all this crazy censorship like I used to all the time. It's like living in communist China, Nazi Germany just 15 minutes ago before Donald Trump was the president again. And so it just kind of surprises you a little bit that, like, TikTok is still that way. Like, what's going on with TikTok? Well, they're owned by China, so perpetuate communist narratives. Yeah, I can see that. But I also think to myself, like, Donald Trump, didn't you make a deal to buy TikTok? Like, and if you did make a deal to buy TikTok, then that means that they should have to do what you say or it sucks for them, right? Like, meaning that they should be as censorless as, like, Twitter is, or how about you just don't give them any money and they don't make any money off of TikTok, right? I mean, that's what it really should be. Like, TikTok doesn't even have a platform if it's not for the United States buying it and saying you do whatever you get told because I'm your daddy. If Donald Trump doesn't do that, they don't even have a TikTok in the United States of America. And we bought TikTok. So really, I think also it should be looked into like, you know what? Not just that, but like, you can't be sitting here basically still accusing Donald Trump and his supporters of being a white supremacist. Like, why do you get to continuously still deplatform people for being supposed white supremacists when in the videos you deplatform them from were literally condemning the far right and white supremacy? And also deplatforming people that challenge election results and stuff like that. Like, it's just a load of nonsense. And then now Mike Lindell is running for the governor of Minnesota, right? Which is awesome. I fully support him and think that he should win. And I also believe that if it's not for election fraud, that he probably will win, right? I think the only way he doesn't win is if the election is rigged. That's what I believe. 100%. And that's because Governor Newscum made it illegal. Newscum, that's his name. New space scum, S-C-U-M. He's a scumbag. Governor Newscum, he made it illegal to check voter ID, so that's fraud. New York City did the same thing, and then Mum Dummy, the biggest clown that's ever existed in the history of American politics, right next to his twin brother, Barack Hussein Osama, he only gets elected because 97% of all of his voters, 97% of people that have only lived in New York since the border was open voted for him, and 70+% that have only lived there since Trump first ran voted for him, but he lost the majority of voters for people that have lived there over 10 years or have lived there since they were born and raised in New York City. So New York didn't vote for him, in other words. It's illegal to check voter IDs there as well, right? And you kind of see that in a lot of blue states. It's really weird. All the blue states make voter IDs illegal, and all the red states, they don't change votes. They just simply ask that there's verified people that are actually voting. And then for some reason, it gets Republicans elected. It's really kind of weird. It's so weird that Democrats notice it so much themselves that they're intimidated by the fact, and they make entire laws to not count the votes of people that are verified users, because they seem to think that they win elections when you don't know who's voting for them. Yeah. And so that's why I say if the election's not rigged in Minnesota, because Minnesota has a lot of Muslims and Minnesota has a lot of Democrats, and you know, how confident are you in those elections there in Minnesota? I don't know. I'm not really so sure about it. And the same for like Pennsylvania as well. Like, you know, Fetterman, he's now come against the Democratic Party, but the truth is that Dr. Oz won the election against him. And the truth is that Herschel Walker won that election in Georgia. That's the truth. And Donald Trump won Georgia, by the way, too, and Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and Michigan. That's all the truth. That's never changed. And eventually it will come out, and thank God. And, you know, the right people will be put in office. And Kari Lake won the Arizona election, not just once, but twice. And she'll be put back in office. And she liked my tweet on Twitter the other day. It was so awesome. It's really crazy, right? It was like mind-blowing because I love Kari Lake. Like, I'm a huge fan of Kari Lake. Like, Kari Lake is one of my favorite people on the planet. Like, she's beautiful and gorgeous. And that's just on top of the fact that she is the strongest political candidate in the entire political spectrum besides Donald J. Trump himself, right? And Ron DeSantis is great, you know, but Kari Lake is something else, isn't she? So much that they had to screw her out of 2 elections, and also, and now she's in Donald Trump's cabinet, and all of that liked my tweet. Isn't that crazy, man? That was so crazy, bro. I saw it and I was like, what? Because I went on there, and what happened was she had put a tweet up about something like where she was saying, people ask me how I survived the swamp and how I survive, you know, these 2 elections that happened and something, so on and so forth. And I said back, you mean the 2 elections that you won, just like Donald Trump in 2020, we just haven't figured it out yet. And then she liked that tweet, and I was like, man, that is crazy, bro. It said, it pops up in the notifications, Kari Lake likes your tweet. And then I was like, what? You know, you see the name and you see the profile picture, and you're like, hold on a minute. Okay, you're excited. You're really excited. But then you're like, wait a second. Like, I got to click on here and make sure that it's not a parody account. You know what I mean? And then you click on there, and it's not a parody account. It's Kari Lake's official Twitter page with like 4 million followers. It's crazy. And I was like, this is insane, man. And I screenshotted it, and I still have the picture, of course. And then I tell everybody, man, Kari Lake liked my tweet on Twitter. It's nuts, bro. Can you believe it? That's like, at that time, that was like the 3rd time that's ever happened to me. Like, there were 2 other people who have like millions of followers that liked my tweet. And then Kari Lake, that was the 3rd time that ever happened to me. And I thought that was insane, right? And it is insane. I still can't believe it. It's so crazy. But, you know, birds of a feather flock together. And that's the reason why Kari Lake liked my tweet. And on top of that, then most recently, it happened again, like, how long ago? Maybe a few weeks ago, where James O'Keefe, the founder and the former CEO of Project Veritas, which is the greatest media company on the face of the planet right now. Well, was until they did a coup and got rid of James O'Keefe. And now OMG, O'Keefe Media Group, is the greatest media outlet on the face of the planet right now. But maybe he gets it back, right? Because that's what he's working on now. And James O'Keefe, the greatest journalist on the face of the planet right now, the incorruptible, courageous warrior that is James O'Keefe. Cannot be enough words to be said of the honor of James O'Keefe. He liked my tweet, and I was like, man, this is crazy. OMG liked my tweet first, O'Keefe Media Group, and then James O'Keefe's personal Twitter account came in there and liked it as well. I thought that was crazy, man. I was like, my God, this is nuts, bro. It's happening again. First Carrie Lake liked it, and now James O'Keefe. And I screenshotted that as well and told everybody too. Birds of a feather flock together. That's exactly what it is, you know? And well, that's what it is. Like, I'm trying to. That's exactly what it is. So, you know, I hope Mike Lindell wins. James O'Keefe will continue to do what James O'Keefe does, which is expose every single last one of these clowns, like the clowns that they are. Probably the most just. My price is my life. Yeah, exactly that, James O'Keefe. Exactly that, my friend. 100%. My price is my life. And if someone were to offer you $10 million to shut up, would you do it? And then people in the comment section are like, well, you know, maybe. No, there ain't no maybe about it, bruh. If somebody offers you $10 million to shut up, will you do it? The answer is absolutely not. Because and I feel the exact same way. I agree with James O'Keefe 100% on this. If you have a price, if your price isn't your life, then that means that you lack integrity. You can be bought. You can be sold. See, you either have, and this is the truth, you're either priceless or you are worthless. There's really no in between. There's no in between. You're either unbuyable and you're priceless, filled with greatness and glory and honor, or you are completely buyable and you are worthless, regardless of what that is, because you don't have any honor. And that's the truth. And that's why I love James O'Keefe so much. Yeah. And anybody that does, because when you look at James O'Keefe, you recognize somebody that cares more about truth, righteousness, and justice than anybody else, and isn't afraid to actually go and do something, because that is the definition of real justice. And he will continue to expose everybody. I love the guy, man. You just can't get enough of the guy. It's like maybe one of the most perfect jobs in the world, bro. That's like, you know how fun it must be to get up and to be able to destroy them by exposing them every single day of your life like that. Like, that has to be the funnest thing in the world, man. I couldn't imagine a job that's more fun than that. Waking up every morning and realizing that the crazy, nonsensical nutcases are just peering over their shoulder constantly. You know, it's like being Batman. Like I said, I'm Batman. You know, it's like you're like Batman. You know what I mean? It's like they're constantly overlooking their shoulder because they're scared that you're going to come up behind them, or you're going to wind up in one of their they're going to wind up on one of the cameras and be like, oh, you know what I mean? Like they're scared. Where is he? He could be anywhere. He's this and he's that. He's the legendary Batman. You know, he's the legendary Phantom. We don't know he's there until it's too late. He comes in like a silent killer and shoots us in the middle of the night. And then the next thing you know, we look around and our faces plastered all over TV because we just got decimated on live TV, and now we have to spend the rest of our lives trying to convince everybody that we didn't mean it when we looked into the camera and said, shh, don't tell anybody about this, okay? It just stays between you and me.